I see some of you on my side here, but anyway, let's go ahead. I guess I'll have to go through this, and then we will take questions after, I think, because I'm not going to really know. I guess if you speak out, I can hear your questions. I can't see any raised hands really, but anyway, if you have a question, we will certainly take care of that today. So just a little bit more, a plug for Helpline. As we said, as an intern, it is mandatory that you do your Helpline hours before you're certified. But we hope that you learn to love it. You do love it, and you stay on with Helpline. And, we're all a little biased because we love Helpline, but really, I think that Helpline is the core of the Master Gardener program. And just a few things here on the bottom of the slide. These are from the website, the extension website, talking about the mission, the purpose, that kind of Master Gardeners. So providing one-on-one information for homeowner lawn, garden, and landscaping challenges. So, I mean, that's really what we're doing with Helpline. You're there with your client, they can come in or they can email, ask you their problem, and we are there kind of one-on-one to help them. And then this is about the Master Gardeners. Some of our community service includes, and first thing on that list is staffing the Master Gardeners Helpline. We're all about Master Gardeners, all about outreach to the community, and that's one of the great services we provide the communities, to just be there and answer garden challenges for people. All right, and then I like to call, like Hal was kind of talking about puzzles, and I think that's kind of cool. I like to say, if you don't think you're going to like Helpline going in, give it a chance, but it's definitely for you if you like helping people. Hopefully we all like that. You like the horticultural aspect of Master Gardener program. And as Hal was talking about, I like to think of it as, if you ever dreamed of being a detective, or you're just very curious and you're very tenacious. And for me, I always say, like, I can't stand not knowing. Like, if somebody would come into Helpline and pose a problem, and I was there with my, 3 hours trying to work on it, and we just didn't figure it out by the end of the session, I just had a hard time leaving that. And I always could not stand not knowing what the end answer is. So if you're like that, I think Helpline would be appealing to you as well. And most important, as some of our team members said to you, if you really want to continue learning and expanding your garden expertise, Helpline is the way to go. It's like continuing ed all the time. It's the way you just continue to learn things, because, you guys were trained. I had the same training probably as you, or similar. And, I felt like I learned a lot. I gardened for a lot of years. I thought I knew a lot, but there's just so much out there to know. And Helpline's a great way to learn. All right, so I'm going to stop for a minute, and I'm going to ask Lisa to jump in. She's our expert on all this signing up and better impact and everything. Thank goodness, because that's not my strength. So Lisa, go ahead with this.
All right. So first of all, thank you all for pre-registering for this training. That was actually a way for you to learn what we're going to be doing for Helpline signups. So if you recall, one of the things we asked you to do was change your privacy settings so that we could see your names when you sign up. And we have since discovered that there's a way for Better Impact to send us email reminders of our scheduled activities. And so the first thing we're going to ask you to do between now and Friday is to log back into Helpline, into Better Impact, and subscribe to getting email. And that information is all in Appendix A of the general information document, but this gives you a summary. This slide gives you a summary of what you need to do to schedule the emails. So can we do the next slide, please? And then as far as signups go, we're going to use the opportunities calendar, just like we did for training. to sign up for slots. So at the moment, you don't have visibility to the calendar of Helpline signups. But after today's training session, I will be enabling you to all see the sessions. So we have slots scheduled for Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday in March from 10 a.m. to noon. And so again, you'll go to the calendar and look for the 10A, 10 for 10 a.m. Helpline, and sign up for a session. So the way we've worked it is I guess we're going to keep it this way, Lorna, even though we made a last minute change this morning, but that's not going to work. So, okay, sorry. So we'd like you to sign up for 3 sessions and to spread them across the month so that everybody has a chance to sign up, in the first 2 weeks, because our team will be meeting mid-March to evaluate how things are going. And so we'd like everybody to have a chance to have signed up. So between today and Friday, we'd like you to do that. What you'll find when you go to the sign up is there's already one person on that day scheduled, and that's the certified master gardener from our helpline team. So we have already gone in and scheduled ourselves so that we know that one of us is with you. And then if you need to change your schedule at any time, you'll go to the schedule tab in Better Impact and you'll see a list of your events. And maybe do we want me to switch to my screen so I can show them this at this point? Lorna, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
And let me see if I share my screen.
I think I have to stop my share.
Okay.
Let me try that. Okay, we're back. Return.
Okay, so let me see if I can go to my screen. All right, are you seeing my
Yes.
impact screen? Okay, so this is just the configuration contact information page. I just wanted to show you, here's the spot where you will subscribe. You see I'm already subscribed. You'll get that message you're subscribed. And so if you go over to opportunities calendar, what you will see for, oops, okay. You'll see all these 10 a.m. helpline slots that are for what you will sign up for. And then this is one that I'm currently the person. So if you click on it, you click the who is scheduled. Oops, sorry, it's Lorna who's scheduled for that day. So if you want to be on with Lorna, then you would sign up for Thursday, March 11th. So when all 4 slots are signed up, you will no longer see that option for that date on Helpline. It'll be completely blank. So, okay, so, and then the only other thing was to go over to schedule, and you'll see that today's Helpline training is on my activity Fridays, and then the 2 sessions that I'm going to be working in March. And as well as you can see that you can sign up for all of our general meetings are on the calendar, so you can also assign yourself to those ahead of time. The beauty of that is that when it comes time for you to log your hours, Better Impact will know that you have those activities signed up for, and it just brings you right to those dates when you go to the hours tab. So for hours, for this training session, you're going to log your hours under continuing education helpline training, this activity. And then for all of the times that you're working the helpline, it's an outreach activity. And so you'll go down to outreach helpline to log your hours. So, okay, I think that's it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we'll go to the last slide. How do I stop?
Up at the top, there should be a little, if you hover up at the top, it says stop share.
Oh, I see. Stop share. Yeah. Okay, so if you go back, Lorna.
All right, so next slide. Cover this, or is there something you want to say?
No, I pretty much said that. I mean, maybe we want to just take a second and see if anybody has any questions about this specific topic before moving on.
Okay.
All of this is detailed in the, in our general information document, as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email.
Yeah. And I guess if you have questions throughout this, just unmute and go ahead and ask. Okay, so virtual helpline, how that's all going to work. So this is just kind of a summary of what's going to be going on. So just to let you know, we're going to try our best to respond to things as quickly as possible, but certainly hopefully within 2 days. And also just to make clear, like none of us, that even the team or whatever, are going to be a contact with the client. Everything flows through Marilyn and Nick, and eventually our new environmental coordinator. So you won't be directly emailing or receiving emails from the clients. The evening before the shift you're signed up for, the certified master gardener that's assigned for that shift will send you an email, and they're just going to be checking in, saying they're the certified, and they're going to send a link or just clarify in the email how you all who are working the shift will communicate for that shift. We're thinking about trying to do that via Zoom for the first few weeks, just so we can all see each other, maybe make it a little easier. But some people might have preferences for on a teleconference. We'll have to see how that works out. But you'll be contacted by your certified just to let you know how you're going to all connect the next morning. And then the morning of your shift, you'll be emailed the client inquiries that you'll be handling that day. Before the morning, there's going to be some maybe having come in to Marilyn through the email, so she'll have those, and we'll get those. And then, of course, while we're working a shift, more could come in. So you'll get them emailed from your certified master gardener. And then when you all connect, however you connect, we will all talk, figure out how we're gonna work things. Maybe we'll each take a problem and research it for a while and come back together, or you could just sit and one by one go through it together. That's going to be left to the shift that day just to decide and figure out. And then when you're preparing a response, an answer to a client problem, you're going to be writing it as though you are emailing the client. This just saves a little step and a little work for Nick and Marilyn as far as trying to reword things or structure them. So we're going to create the email as though we are emailing the client, even though we aren't really emailing the client. A little confusing, but you'll get used to that. And then when you've completed, as an intern, when you've completed a response, you're going to email it over to your certified master gardener. And that's that little, just for you guys as beginners or whatever, just that little check for you. So you don't have to worry so much whether everything is perfect or that. We're sort of just there as a check for you. And then once everything looks good, we will forward it over to Marilyn, and then it goes to Nick for an extra look-see before it goes to the client. So that is how the process of, the shift and you getting the information and everything works. All right, and this is a nice little flow chart that Lisa created for us, again, just to show you that the administrative assistant Marilyn is gonna send the inquiries, the client inquiries, to us, the team, whoever is, the team member that's working that day, like me for March 11th, like Lisa just showed. I would be emailing you the night before about, hey, we're gonna do this via Zoom, here's the link. And then that morning, I will email you whatever these inquiries that have been forwarded over to us are for us to work on. And that middle box, we do all of our research, all of our collaborating and working, and we get our answers put together, and they're emailed over to Marilyn and then Nick, and then they finally go on to the client. All right, so just to, I guess a word about when you're, drafting up a response and how we're going to handle, like in Helpline in person, of course, used to work where somebody could walk in or somebody could call on the phone and ask a question. And with that kind of format, although we were in the last number of years getting a lot of emails, so we've kind of been drifting in this direction anyway. But in the old format of a phone call or an in-person visit, someone would pose their question and you would be able to think about it a little bit. And often on any diagnostics sort of situation, there's going to be questions and things that you would want to ask just to help you mostly figure out whether there are environmental factors affecting the plant, to figure out what they are and how they might impact what's going on with the plant. So you would have the opportunity to just say to this person, the homeowner or client in person, well, I don't know, is this planted in shade? Has it had any supplemental watering? Things like that. I know you guys have had in your training how environmental and cultural factors can be very important. So now we don't really have that same kind of dialogue back and forth that we used to, which makes it a little bit more challenging to diagnose, but it really just means that we have to kind of do it in a different way. So what we have figured out is going to be the best way to manage this is you're going to, we're going to be getting photos of the plants and problems and that in question, and then a little email from the person. And from that information, hopefully you can mostly tell what is the likely diagnosis for what's going on. So then you're going to structure an answer back to the client based upon, I guess you're sort of making certain assumptions in a way, or you're kind of ruling out the cultural factors. And some diagnoses, that's really not a big deal. Some it's a little more of a problem, but you're going to attempt to structure a response without being able to have that dialogue. And maybe you're missing like a little bit of information. So when we do that, when you are writing your response, drafting your response, we are going to use somewhat of like what I just call like conditional language. All right, because we're not absolutely sure unless we can ask these questions maybe. So we're going to say things like, and I'll switch to some slides here of sort of sample responses that I just made up to show you. But we're going to say things like, if you look at this response, you can see that we're saying based on the photos you've sent. So I've put in red some of the language that is this, kind of conditional language, because really, we don't see the live sample. We're only seeing the photos. And sometimes, that's not, a lot of times that's not as good as the live sample. And then we don't get to ask a bunch of questions. So based on the photos, that's something you might be saying, we believe this based on the photos. So I think you guys are getting the idea here of how we're going to respond to the client. We believe your tree is a flowering plum. Flowering plums are susceptible. That's like a key problem of flowering plums, susceptible to a fungal disease called black knot. And the branches of your tree in the picture, in the photo, appear to have, like that is what we're seeing. So we're really saying, this is what we're seeing. It's kind of leaving it back to the client to kind of confirm what we're saying. And if this all seems to be true, this is our diagnosis. So what we then further do is we give them information for them to read and consider and look at their plan and look at the information. They're kind of confirming our diagnosis, I think is what it comes down to. And then of course, if they have further questions, they can always email back to us. So we're hoping to give people an answer that seems likely, information to help them make the conclusion of their own, and information that would have, treatment and management for them if that indeed was the problem. So is there any, I'm going to show you some more of these responses, but since that was a lot for me to say and it's an important thing, is there any questions about that? Okay. I think it's something that, just so you guys know, interns, it's something that's really going to be new. This virtual helpline is really a new format for a lot of us master gardeners. There was a set of people who did some of the responses last season, but I know I did not. So this is all going to be new for us figuring out how to do this. So
Excuse me, Lorna.
yes.
If, let's say you start working on a problem during the session and it
Yes.
runs over to the following day and so on, you carry that with you to your next session, or do you hand it over to somebody else?
Right. So, so for in-person helpline, of course, it was always the case that it was, you leave the office at 12 o'clock, you leave all the information and the samples on the desk, and it was left for the next team. You at this point can leave if you don't resolve something for the next session. Like it would have to be passed along, which would be done by your certified. But we had discussed on the helpline team that, you guys are looking for hours and probably anxious to get your hours done, maybe, and become certified. So if that's something you would, at the end of your shift, you will consult with your master gardener, your certified master gardener, and figure out if there's something that you've really been researching, you're into it, you would really like to resolve it. Then say me as your certified can say, okay, you know what, if you want to go ahead and work on this, and you say you happen to have time that afternoon or that evening, you guys discuss that and figure that out. And then if that's something that would work, absolutely you can handle it that way. That's the way that obviously we'll be able to give the clients a quicker response. So that's certainly an option that's open to you guys if you would like to take it. And then, for instance, if you had time and you worked on that that night rather, you could just, again, as you would have, just forward it to whoever your certified was, say me, when it's finished. And we are fine with that. So does that answer that question? Okay.
Lauren, I just want to add that the hours that you work outside of the, our scheduled 10 to 12 would also count as helpline hours. So
Yes.
work
Yes.
issue, you would still get hours for it.
Right. All right. So now, if the second sample was just a diagnosis that was made where, like what we decided was if we were going to kind of ask questions of the client, they were almost going to just be a little, kind of rhetorical, if you know what I mean. So I've drafted up this one to say, based on the photos you sent, we believe this, your rhododendrons have been damaged by winter injury. And we're kind of in this further text saying why we think that. All right. Then I go on to say a way to confirm this diagnosis would be to answer some of the following questions. So these are a way in your response that you can pose questions to the client about cultural factors that might be affecting their problem and really may have caused the problem. Just for for them to educate them and for them to consider it. So for instance, if we're saying we believe that your rhododendron does have winter injury, well, why did that happen? Well, these are reasons it could have happened. Where is the bush planted? Is it exposed? Does it have any protection? Is it on the west side of the house, which is normally more exposed to winds? It was a dry fall. Did it get supplemental watering in the fall before the ground froze and it went, we went into winter? So all of these, again, like if you can put questions in your email, probably you're not going to do it in the spirit of, okay, we want your answers back, but more of from a intention of educating the client about what is probably gone on with their plant. And then they're going to be looking for instance, if their rhododendron had winter injury, how can they prevent that from happening in the future? So just go on then to say, please consult this fact sheet It has suggestions for how to protect plants next season, etc. And then a little advice about just wait, some parts of your plants could look dead, but be patient and see if, those parts of the plant leaf back out again. All right, and this would be a third type of response you might be sending. We could get email to us photos. Of course, photos are only, as good as whatever the photographer and maybe the quality of the phone or the camera, but maybe the case where you're going to get a photo in an inquiry and you just really cannot tell what's going on because the photo just doesn't, it's blurry, it's just doesn't show things properly. In that case, you would just draw up an email, and this is one where we would be going back, hoping and expecting for an answer back. Please send us photos, new photos. And then you give them some guidelines right here in blue as to, what the photos need to look like, a way to take a good photo of your problem. All right, so I just wanted to show you that again to give you an idea of what some of the emailed responses are going to look like. All right, so moving on to some Master Gardener policies, and these are, regardless of whether it's in person or virtual. And you guys, these are in documents that are on the internet. And again, I think you guys, these are in our general information, so you can look back there. But there are some things that Master Gardeners do not handle or do not do. And you guys really need to kind of commit these to, I'd say commit them to memory or just have a reference for yourself. But we do not evaluate the work of horticultural professionals. We don't really get into anything that's professional, commercial, agricultural. We really are there to answer home garden questions from the public from our county. So if you, in your, with them being kind of screened by Maryland, we're probably not going to see those. But if you got one, if it, it slipped through and we got one, just to be aware that we wouldn't handle that. And then that would just be passed back along to, right now for Nick to handle, say. Also medical or human health questions. We have sometimes been asked, questions because, for instance, say like Lyme disease is caused by ticks. There's been questions or things that come into the helpline about kind of like a health or medical issue. And of course, that is not what we're there for. That's not what we're trained in. So that's something that you would absolutely refer the client on. And all of these things that we're saying we don't handle or we don't do, we have resource material or referrals for you to use. So you would just go to that information and you would provide a referral or something like that to the client.
Excuse me, Lorna, before you
Yes.
switch slides, I just want to mention that all of these items on this slide are in the general information document. They're in the list under general policies. So while it may not look like the same information, it is all there. We really try to just summarize that document in this presentation.
Right. So again, questions about whether or not something's edible. We have gotten those, and that's not something that you want to comment upon. And disputes between neighbors or again, commercial people. People can frequently have a problem with a neighbor with trees or things and property, whatever. So we just don't get into that. That would again be referred to Nick or the environmental coordinator or consultant. I'm sorry, I don't know that. Anyway, okay, and as a master gardener, you do not endorse any business or store. So, we don't say, okay, you should, you could get this really cool tool or this product, this pesticide. Oh, I know they have it at Lowe's, go to Lowe's, or, go to the Agway or the co-op. We don't do that. So pretty much you would just say, oh, this check with your home center, your garden center, or something like that. And no endorsement of products. So when you're giving a recommendation, say for a pesticide or something like that, or I don't know, whatever it is, fertilizer, we always are giving chemical names. And I believe if we really, I think that if you're going to give a, like a product name or a brand name, you need to just to call, I guess, to call people's attention to what you're talking about. If you're talking about any kind of a brand, which really you want to avoid, but you give like multiple. We're not endorsing specific products. So pretty much stick to the chemical names of things. And then absolutely no personal pesticide recommendations or home remedies are allowed. All right, so communicating with clients on pesticides. This is an area that can be, I guess, a little challenging. We are somewhat limited. We work under the auspices of Rutgers, so we have to go by what is allowed and evaluated and all that by Rutgers. So if you're going to give any kind of a pesticide recommendation, it has to come from a Rutgers fact sheet or from one of their pest control publications, or be approved by the state for the use you're recommending. Or if you really just don't know about all that, it can be run by the EC or the ag agent. So we're going to, I won't get too into this right at this moment now, and you'll probably get into this more as you're working with your certifieds, but there you are, if, for instance, if you have a problem and you're trying to pass along information to the client, maybe I should switch to the next slide. Okay, here, I'll just fast forward a little. So when you're looking for information sources, first look to Rutgers. You should become as familiar as you can with what information Rutgers has that's available for your use and for use to pass along to clients. So first go there. If there are going to be subjects where you might not find a Rutgers fact sheet or Rutgers information. So we are permitted as master gardeners to use other university extension sites, and those sites should all end in .edu. So that will be your second option. And if you're not familiar, you can limit your domain, the .edu part, the .com part, all of that, the domain, you can limit that to the .edu sites by either going into your little settings tool and doing an advanced search, or you can just simply do what I have right here. Here's an example. If I wanted to know about black knot on plum and I wanted, good university extension information, I'm just going to Google black knot and plum. And then right after that, in the search bar, I'm going to type site:.edu. And after you do that, if you hit enter, you're going to see that the results that come up for you are going to hopefully be mostly about black knot and plum, and they're all going to be from EDU sites. So that's really the easiest way to handle that. Reason I was telling you that, let me go backwards, is there may be a case where the fact sheet that you're sending over to the client, it's not Rutgers, but say it's like Penn State University. If in that fact sheet, Penn State has actually put a pesticide recommendation, you now need to, before you pass that along, we're going to have like a little bit of I don't have this ready for the screen today, but we will have it ready for Helpline. We're going to have a little bit of like a disclaimer just saying that, this information was not tested by Rutgers, and please read the label and evaluate this for your use. So hopefully I'm not confusing everyone by what I'm saying, but one of the main things to emphasize with the client when you're, talking to them, but via email, which we'll be doing now, is to read and follow the label. Right? We're relying upon that. And that's, the label is the law. That's what everybody's supposed to be using as guidance. So I'm going to stop for a minute because I know that might have been somewhat confusing. Does anyone have any questions about that? And again, all of this, I think, will become, if any of this is sort of freaking you out or seems overwhelming, it's going to become clear when you work, when you work on Helpline with your certified. We will work this all out together and figure out how to do these responses. Okay, so some tips for success. The more you can familiarize yourself with all this stuff we've been sending you, and it's on the internet, the policies and procedures and processes, the better. Definitely collaborate with your other master gardeners. I know that pretty much most problems I solved as a master gardener on Helpline were done in collaboration with the other master gardeners I was working with. Somebody's going to just think of a little thing that you didn't think of, and you go back and forth, and that's really the best way to solve problems. Use your resources. We have worked hard, and hopefully we will continue to work to give you resources to refer to. Number one, like all those referrals and things that you might need, and those are now up on the internet. We're working on developing a set of like common responses, because you'll see as you work on Helpline that, in a given season, maybe all of a sudden we'll just be getting a lot of questions about a particular topic, because every season is different and some seasons have particular issues. So rather than us all on each shift kind of recreating the same research and information, we're going to try to develop a little set of common responses that you could use if you're getting the same question that we've all been getting. So we are working on that. In person, we had a whole little library there and things like that. We don't have that. So we're just going to try to work on developing some resources. As I said before, become very familiar with the resources that Rutgers has to offer. You definitely want to be offering Rutgers information above all else. That is, after all, who we are. Be sensitive to what is being asked, who is asking, and being sure it's something master gardeners handle. That's, again, just that whole issue of, as you're answering a question, oh, is this about, can I eat this? Can I eat this mushroom? Is it poisonous? I'm not, that's not really for us to say. Or, somebody could be asking a question and you just might get a little inkling that maybe this is not a homeowner, but this is a professional person, a landscaper or something. So just be a little sensitive about that. And then, as I was kind of saying in the beginning, be curious. This is how you're going to be a good Helpline worker. Just right now, when you're, I guess it's be curious, like even when you're not working on Helpline. Whenever you're outdoors, just be looking around, hone your observation skills. I like to walk a lot, and when I'm walking, I am just, I am looking at the trees, I am looking at the bushes, I am looking at, all the plants around me and seeing if there's something going on. And it's kind of cool what you can find. So just be out there, look around, scout for things. I usually have my phone, so I'll take a picture and I'll go home and I will research and try to see what I'm looking at. So that's going to help you if you do that.
Well, Lorna, can I jump in for a second?
Yeah.
One of the things that you also have to remember is that you are a representative of Rutgers. So you have to be very careful about what you say. And this is more important, or it's going to be more of an issue when we're in person again. I think we will be editing as we go along when we're on the internet. But if you are in person, you have to be very careful that you're representative of Rutgers, and you have to be careful of what you're saying, what you're recommending. And to this end, when your neighbors find out that you are a master gardener, you will be asked 100 different questions. So you have to be careful to say what the Rutgers wording would be with them if you are going to answer them as a master gardener. If you're answering them as a neighbor, you can do what you want, but if you're answering as a master gardener, you have to be careful. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we kind of began this slide, but so again, this is just like we are are going to be using the internet. That's kind of what we're using at this point, being at home. So just, you are limited in where you can get your information. So there is a lot of gardening information out there. Some of it may, I think some of it's very good, some of it's not so good. But we need to know that it's information that's reliable, was tested, evaluated and tested by a university, Rutgers or a university. So you really are somewhat limited in where you can search. It is very useful, and it is permissible to search Google Images for plant IDs. It's just, when you're trying to figure out what something is, almost like the more pictures you can look at, the better, to find one that most closely looks like what you're looking at in your sample or your picture. But, again, if you're doing that and you're finding information on an internet site that's not from a university extension, excuse me, it must be confirmed by university information before you can use it, before you can really consider it, good research for you, and before you can recommend anything to the client based upon that. So, if you have to idea plan or stray a little bit, you have to go back and confirm it on a .edu website. And we are also working on developing, there's a document that's website resources. So there's some resources, websites in there that have been already pre-approved for your use. So there are, for instance, some .org websites that may have very valuable information that really, say, Rutgers hasn't done a lot of work on. And if you come across something like that and you really think it's valuable for Helpline use, you need to get it over to Karen or I for approval. And then we will get it on our approved source list. Okay. All right, so going to the intranet, I don't know if you all have been there before, but if not, this is how you would get there. We have on the website an intranet site, which is just for us. So this is how you'd get there. And I believe this is in your packet, so you can do it, you can go through the steps on your own. And then we now have stuff, if you do go here, I will show you by clicking. This is what it looks like. This would be the first page. And then if you go on this main menu here on the left, this, my words are failing me. If you go on this menu and you click on Gardener's Tools, that is where our information and resources are. So just to show you what that looks like, Gardener's Tools, the first heading is Helpline. And this is what we've put up there for you so far. And I think there probably will be some more resources to come.
Actually, Lorna, it's all of our documents are up there now in, with the Helpline general info document being the very first one.
Right. So I took this screenshot to prepare this the other day. So this is, I guess it'll look a little bit different at this point, but that just gives you an idea.
And at the bottom of that screen is where the better impact information is as well.
Okay.
So just from the previous discussion.
Right. Okay, so here is, I'm not sure, some resources that, we recommend that you use as you're looking at problems, as we try to emphasize your fellow master gardeners. Some of us, I think, as you've heard from our introductions, have been doing this for years, have a lot of experience gardening and working on Helpline, and you guys with each other. Like I said, maybe one of you just is an orchid lover and has 20 orchids and all about how to grow orchids. So obviously you're gonna, somebody else might be working on a problem. They don't really know anything. You're gonna be able to a lot more easily answer that question. These are the recommendations, the links for pesticide use in New Jersey. So you can go here to get recommendations for clients. As we mentioned, other fact sheets and guidance from university sites. We would like you to stick to Northeast Mid-Atlantic University sites because just geographically, we're experiencing the same conditions and weather, or at least similar, rather than going to like Arizona or something like that. You know, there may be a circumstance where the only fact sheet, I don't think this is likely to happen much, the only fact sheet on something is out of that area. And you can pull information from that, but you would not want to pull any information from that that had anything to do with time of year or climate or anything like that. So that's a little bit tricky using something like that. So try, there's a lot of, you know, Northeast Mid-Atlantic states that you can get information from. So try to stick there. Of course, I just showed you in the Gardener's Tool, there's lots of resources. Okay, this is a little bit repetitive here, but Google Images. We thought we should just, you know, you probably think of this yourself, but remember you have your class materials as resource to refer back to and to help you diagnose. I know when I first worked Helpline, I toddled into Helpline with my, you know, my class information, my binder under my arm. And that first year when I did Helpline, I relied upon that. So I think that's a good source of information. And then, like I said, we're developing this, some common questions and answers and things like that. So ultimately that'll make things a little more streamlined and efficient if you can, you know, if we cannot sort of answer the same question over and over. And then, of course, we have our EC or ag agent as sort of a final source. If we just absolutely cannot solve something, we can consult with them or pass the inquiry over to them. All right, so now this is where I was going to jump out for a minute. What time is it? It's 11:05. I'm not sure, since we're maybe going over time, whether I should do this. Just gonna, I guess I won't in the interest of the time. But when you are in person, when we are in person again, eventually, there are client sheets that we use, contact sheets. They are now on the intranet, so you can, in your own good time, you can go in there and look at them. That's something you're going to be using when we go in person. They're also just were like when you're in person, but even to look at now, they're sort of a good little resource or kind of like a cheat sheet in that they are structured to help you ask the cultural questions you would need to ask of the client. You know, of course, in person when you can ask them, but we really want you, and I'll emphasize this more on Friday, even though we don't have the opportunity right now to ask all these cultural questions and get the information right back, as a master gardener and as a good plant diagnostician, you kind of just need to get in your head that sort of that script, that way of thinking of asking these questions. Like when a problem is posed to you about some plant or garden problem, you know, right away, you should just start sort of, you know, the wheel starts spinning and you should start to think of, okay, well, what about this? What about, you know, has it been in a stressful environment? Has it been given support, or just whatever those questions are? Has it, you know, did the client fertilize or lime if it's a lawn? There's just all kinds of questions that you just need to start asking. So if you want to take a peek at the client sheets, they are a way to get you thinking that way. And then I was also going to take you into the actual resources, but I think we'll let you just go in there and explore on your own. And then these next few slides, this is some information about samples. And Lisa, is this in the packet, the general information? I don't know if Lisa's still there. Oh, you are.
I'm here. Yep, I'm here. I'm sorry. I just leaned back.
Did this get put in there? You have this so much more in your head than me.
Yeah, no, it's on the intranet. It's a separate.
Oh, yes, it's a separate
sample.
thing. Okay, so this is on, go ahead, Lisa.
No, I was just going to say, in the general information doc, there is a table of all the documents that are on the intranet. And so you'll see that there's a item there called samples, and that's will bring up this whole list that Lorna has.
Right. So again, I won't spend too much time on this, but if you go in there, again, in your own good time when you have some time, just like, again, we're not now necessarily guiding someone on, okay, all right, we need you to bring a sample, you know, on the phone or in person. This is what you should bring us. But you're going to ultimately need to know that. And this sample information also applies to how you would guide a client. For instance, if I backtrack to that one slide I had where I was giving them guidelines for how to take a good picture for us, this is how, knowing all this is how I was able to come up with that. So read through this, just get a good idea of what makes a good sample for diagnostic purposes of lawns, of trees and shrubs, of perennials and things like that. And then of course for insect samples. All right, so I will leave you to look at that yourselves. And then soil samples, maybe I think you probably went over this in class, because I know when I had class we did do that, but there's 2 types of samples that are available for clients. One is $20. You get a kit. The other one they would be bringing sample into the office, a sample of soil into the office, and the EC does it. But just of course note, they're not doing that test right now because really almost no one's going in the office. So that's limited right now, free to offer. But the other one is available, and we can just, when we're doing our email responses, if we recommend this, we will just put a link to the website where the client would go to get the test kit and to learn how to do that. This is also in your general packet. I'm not going to really go through this, but just to give you reassurance to know that operating under the auspices of Rutgers as a master gardener, when you're acting in the scope of your responsibilities, you cannot be held liable for, I don't know, messing up somebody's tree or something, whatever it is. We do have as volunteers a bit of protection. So just so you know that that's there for you. All right, I think that's it, except to say that we are giving you a little bit of homework. Really, it's in good fun, but I guess the first part, the homework, we do need you to do this, to log in and complete Appendix A. The stuff it's on Appendix A, and to go in and sign up for your March helpline slots. And then extra credit would be for Friday, and we're going to be doing diagnostics on Friday. I have some scenarios that we're going to be breaking out into small groups and diagnosing, but we welcome you guys to bring with you to the session a garden problem from, I realize it's hard with all the snow cover and everything else, and it's so wintry still. But if there's anything going on in your yard or garden now, or maybe even something from last year, if it's even just something you can describe or talk about, or you have a picture or whatever it is, you're welcome to bring that in, and that's something we can also work on as we work through some diagnostics. Okay. I'm going to stop there, and we can.
Lorna, could I just say, I would suggest, if you haven't read the general info document, now that we've gone through this presentation, it might be a good idea to do that. And that way, if there are any questions on Friday, maybe we can handle them at that point. Because what you may think of as a question, probably somebody else's as well. So don't be shy in asking.